I think my podcast needs a jingle. All the good podcasts have jingles. Listen to this podcast about cars. Listen to me spitting these bars. This podcast is addictive as SARS. Okay, it needs work. How is everyone? Good. Glad to hear that. Yeah, it's Wednesday. It's been another week. When I come around to recording this a week after the previous one, it really highlights. A week goes by fast, but then it doesn't, because it doesn't feel like a week ago since I last did this, but it was, because it was last Wednesday. If that makes any sense. Anyway, has it been a quiet week for the car-related world in me? I think it has. Well, the weekend I went to the IVVCC, which stands for Irish Veteran Vintage Classic Cars Club, Cars and Coffee. This is the first Cars and Coffee they've put on. It was in, what was the name of the Deer Park out in Howth. Yeah, it was a nice little couple of hours out, and there's some nice interesting cars there. If you go onto my Instagram, Carnosaur. There's just an underscore between the car and the no-sore bit to highlight the fact that it's an Instagram about cars. They're all up there on my story. However, it being the first one, will give them a benefit of the doubt. And they did message me as well to say the planning wasn't spectacular. Cars started pulling up out near this old kind of castle building they have there in Deer Park, and then it was some young fella who was setting up the signs, and an older gent was like, no, this is not where everyone's supposed to be. And he started taking all the signs down and then waving everyone further up the hill towards the golf course and hotel. But the thing is, then when everyone got up to the golf course and hotel, the car park there was just in general use as it was. So there wasn't really a whole lot of space for people with their classic and interesting cars to park. So a lot of people turned up, did a couple of laps, and then left. Also, the weather was shit, and if you wanted to get a coffee, you'd need to box off about 30 to 40 minutes due to the queue. But I say they didn't. I put up some things on my story, and then they actually did message me on Instagram saying they will. The next one will be in the middle of the summer at some point, and they will make sure that there is more space available and that the catering on site will be to a higher standard. But no, look, it was a nice little couple of hours out. There was some interesting cars there, a good bunch of Alphas, BMWs. There was a Lancia Thema 8.32, Jag Type, a whole plethora of stuff. Go have a look at my Instagram, or even their Instagram, or any of Irish car spotters. Most of you were there, and you'll get all the fun times that happened. Last time I spoke to you as well, I was going to Vicar Street to go see Blind Boy, which was interesting enough. His guest was Oliver Collin, him of Collin's Kicks. Yeah, it was a nice evening out. Bit of crack midweek. But one thing I spotted while I was in there, which I never noticed. So there's two bars in Vicar Street. I'm sure anyone who's familiar with Vicar Street. There's the one you go in initially when you go in the door. It's in the right. It's the big bar. It was quite busy in there, so they were directing people down. There's another bar kind of slightly further down. It would be kind of parallel to where the stage is, almost. And in there, and then tucked down in the very back corner, there's an old MG, the T series, I think is what we call it. Wouldn't be up to date with my MGs or old British sports cars. But yeah, it's a little red MG T series. Even says the Vicar Mobile behind it. I've been to Vicar Street. I've lost count of me. I've been to Vicar Street over the years for different bits of entertainment. I've never noticed it there before. I assume that car has been moved or run and God knows how long. But yeah, again, it's up in my stories there. If you check it, you'll have a flick through, you'll see it. But yeah, it was nice to have a small bit of motoring frivolity while I was out catching some non-car related entertainment. I'm rambling as usual. Anything else? Oh yeah, one thing I does a Trinity College have an amazing amount of buildings scattered around Dublin City. Obviously, the main college, university itself, has about 700 buildings in it as it is. But then they have all these other buildings just scattered around the city centre. And there's one down in Grand Canal. It's called the Trinity Tech and Enterprise unit or whatever. It's just like kind of red brick, built in the 80s, I assume. Collection of buildings down in Grand Canal. And I was in there the other day, and there's this absolute unit of an Iveco truck there. I don't know what it was originally used for. It hasn't moved in years. It almost seems it's almost like a garden ornament in the middle of the this unit, Trinity unit. But it's a huge, like, a proper, like, again, it's up on my stories. It's a gigantic, almost American style engine forward of the cab. It's got big, giant, I'm going to say like 50-inch tires. It's an absolute beast of a thing. It's just big trucks and industrial heavy machinery. It's stuff that's, the child in me still gets a sense of joy when I see stuff like that. I don't know what it is. Well, of course I know what it is. It's that weird obsession us car folk have with anything mechanical. But the big stuff, I think all young boys and girls, some of them, love trucks and diggers and earth movers and stuff, and I don't think that ever goes away. So if you do happen to be up and around Grand Canal, nip into the Trinity Tech and Enterprise Centre and you'll see that beast of an Iveco, which for years I never knew was Italian. Iveco doesn't, well, now I think about it, Iveco does sound like an Italian word, but I don't know. I always thought they were kind of Scandinavian for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's because like a lot of the stuff they make is quite agricultural and ready to go off road, which I don't know, just automatically makes me think of Scandinavia. But anyway, Iveco, Italian. I'm still on the hunt for a car to buy. I'm on the classifieds pretty much on a daily basis. I just can't find something I want to buy. Like I could spend between 5 and 6 grand on a car. If it's cheaper, that's always good. But everything is so overpriced at the moment. It's an absolute joke. And like stuff like a Fiat 500. No, sorry, not a Panda. 100,000 kilometer, 10-year-old Panda, even a year ago, was a 1,500 quid car. Now, like, if you go and look for one now, you're looking at 5 grand. And like, I couldn't spend 5 grand on one. 1,500 quid, absolutely. 5 grand, because it's all overinflated because, well, one, inflation is at a growing, what's the word I'm trying to, inflation is high at the moment. But also then the market is bad due to the lack of new cars and fucking delays with NCTs, etc. Because you just know, like, if you spend 5 grand on a Panda now and then kept it for a year or so, or a couple of years, you're going to be in some serious negative equity, big time. Like, you'd probably lose 3 grand, which I'm not willing to lose 3 grand on a Fiat Panda. It's just, I have something written down here. What did I? What? I can't even read my own writing. Oh yeah. So like, I really need a car. I love driving. I love ownership. I love the freedom of having a car. And yeah, it's so difficult. Like, I know I could just buy something, like, spend 2-3 grand on something, but I'd be settling. And again, I think I'd lose my arse on something because it's overpriced. But I'd also probably be buying something that wouldn't really fill me with any joy. I think you can have fun in any car, to be fair, but I don't know. But like, I have a van with work which I'm allowed to bring home, so I can use for my commute. And although it's never been said that I can't use it for personal use, I don't use it that often. But if I need it, it's there. So like, it's fine. It's a Peugeot partner, which essentially is a Berlingo, and I have a lot of time for the Berlingo. Don't come at me, haters. But it's only methadone to the addiction that I want to fulfill of an actual car. Um, I should probably just get a loan of about 10 grand and then I'll spend 15 on a Boxster or something. I don't know. The market's just upsetting me. I know I've said this many times before, but it's just a terrible time to try and buy a car. Anyway, that's been my week in the world of the motor vehicle. What's been going on in the news? Well, just today, the new flagship, I suppose you would say, Lamborghini has finally been revealed. They've teased us with like the chassis and the engine and little bits of the interior, but now they're showing us the full car. It's the Lamborghini Revuelto, or Evuelto, Revuelto. Yeah, it looks like a V12 Lamborghini. Clearly a lot of styling cues from that Cyan thing they brought out a couple of years ago, Cyan 37 or something it was called, a limited run overpriced thing that they released. Yeah, it's kind of got like a very similar front end to that and rear end, but it's been tweaked a little bit. It kind of looks like if a Huracan had some incestuous sex with that Cyan thing and they gave birth to this. So as we know, it's 6.5 litre V12, naturally aspirated, well, hybrid, naturally aspirated with hybrid assistance, 4-wheel drive, mid-engined. The engine will be spun 180 degrees compared to the outgoing, which is the Aventador, isn't it? Yeah. Due to the funky gearbox that it has that works with the hybrid system, it needs the power to go this way, that way, whatever. Yeah. So look, it's another mid-engined V12 supercar, which is never a bad thing. Lamborghinis wouldn't be my cup of tea. They're a bit too over the top, but the world's a better place for having it. You can see the engine, which is always good because access to engines, even just to look at them, is becoming a rare and rare thing. Like looking at a McLaren or even like a 911. You open up the back of a 911, you just see black plastic and some fans. So you can actually see the engine in this, which is good because show it off, naturally aspirated V12. And it doesn't say, but I'm only going by the pictures here. But I think it might actually be completely open, the engine, a la the Bugatti Veyron. I don't think there's any glass or anything, which wouldn't be great in a range shower. But yeah, and by the time you listen to this, if anyone is listening, you'll have seen this Lamborghini Revuelto. Yeah, check it out. Long live the V12 supercar, even though it won't, because this is definitely going to be the last one. So the ongoing debacle with combustion engine cars being sold within the EU. Obviously, there's been a back and forth recently as to, whether they're going to be banned by 2035, or then there's been some kickback by some of the transport ministers within Europe, mostly Germany, blah, blah. But anyway, so the law has been passed. So no more CO2 producing vehicles can be sold in the EU after 2035, but there is an exemption for vehicles that run on carbon neutral synthetic fuels, which is good, which means the combustion engine isn't quite dead as yet. Now, the thing is, these e-fuels, so probably one of the biggest investors in the e-fuel technology currently is Porsche, and they have that big facility in Chile, I think it is, to create e-fuels through some form of physics and chemistry, which is way beyond my pay grade. But at this stage, they're currently producing about 160,000 litres of e-fuel per year, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, is sweet fuck all. That would, from reading on the Porsche website, that would be about enough for them to fuel the Porsche Super Cup for a season. But they are hoping by the middle of the decade to ramp that up to about 550 million litres, which obviously is a big increase. But again, to put it in perspective, last year, the United States of America land, they used 1.6 billion litres of petrol. So, so like like obviously Porsche aren't going to be the only person in the game. So let's say all in Porsche and then any other people in the market for making e-fuels. Let's say there's 1 billion litres of synthetic e-fuel in the supply chain come say the middle of the decade. I think that would work because the masses will be going towards EVs and the manufacturers will be producing mostly EVs. So there won't be as much a demand from the masses for a combustible fuel. So motorsport, and then obviously the mass transport, trucks and aviation and stuff, they're going to need a lot of this fuel. But you'd like to hope there will be enough in surplus that for the enthusiasts who want to keep a classic, or even just who want to buy one more combustion engine car in 2034, to be able to keep it going for the foreseeable future. But mostly for us enthusiasts, it'd be nice to know that there might be a supply to keep an old classic running and in a carbon neutral way. Okay, we might have to pay for it. You know, we're probably, maybe it could be £3 a litre, but I'd have no problem having some sort of emissionless vehicle as my daily driver, and then something funky and classic with a combustion engine on the side. Anyway, it's a somewhat positive in what is a bleak time for us suck, squeeze, bang, blow lovers. But yeah, it's not over yet, and I'm taking it as a positive. The wording of that EU legislation, CO2 producing vehicles not being produced after 2035, is kind of funny, because anyone who thinks that a battery electric vehicle doesn't produce CO2 is living with their head in the sand, because the electricity to fuel them, for starters, while some of it can come from renewable sources, a lot of it doesn't. And two, the production creates a lot of CO2 in itself. Don't get me wrong, it's good, I think, for no emissions to be coming out of the back end. For cars running around urban environments, I think there is a place for electric vehicles. But to say that electric vehicles are this clean, green answer to a bigger problem is a bit of a misnomer. But anyway, that's enough of that. Because I don't know what I'm talking about, really. What else has happened in the world of motoring? The DB12 has been seen shotted at the Nürburgring, which is obviously going to replace the DB11, which seems kind of soon to me, because stuff like, to me, I know, like, one of these things, as you get older, time passes faster, so it always seems like things happen a lot faster than they did in the past. But for me, the DB7 felt like it was around forever, and then the DB9 was around for quite a number of years as well. To me, the DB11 is still a new car, but it was released in 2016, so what's that, 7 years ago, which doesn't seem like that long. I know, well, to some manufacturers that will be a long life cycle. For Aston Martin, it wouldn't seem to be a thing. And how long was the DB9? DB9 was 2003, 2017. So that's what, a 14-year life cycle. And then the DB7 went. Oh, the DB7 was only 10 years. Oh, but then again, see, it started in '94. I was only a wee sprog then. So yeah, I don't know. 7 years seems quite short. Now I don't know when this DB12 is officially going to be launched. It probably will be shown at some point later this year and then launched next year. So 8 years. But yeah, the one that's been seen spied knocking around the Nürburgring, it's obviously all camoed up, but it doesn't look a whole lot different to the DB11, which I like the DB11. I think it's a good looking car. Aston very rarely make ugly cars, to be fair to them. But yeah, whether that'll have a V12 in it now will be interesting to see. Because unless Aston Martin are going to build their own V12, because I'm pretty sure Mercedes have phased out the V12, because the only thing they had it in was the S-Class, and I think that's no longer a thing. So yeah, I think the DB11 will probably be a V8 at most, possibly a V6 hybrid V6 of some sort. But yeah, DB12 on its way. You heard it here first, or maybe you didn't, because the news was announced a few days ago. That's pretty much it. What else? Piston heads. I remember I mentioned a while ago. Piston heads. Piston heads is 25 years old this year. And a few weeks ago, I announced they did a poll of what was the best sports car built during the lifespan of the website, and it was voted. The reason it piqued interest for me is because they had the ND MX-5 in there. It was number 5, and I rented one for about 30 minutes when I was in Germany a few weeks ago. But the number 1 was the Lotus Elise. So they did it for hot hatches after that, and the winner of that was announced within the last week. And the winner was the GR Yaris, followed closely by the Clio 182 Trophy. There was over 10,000 votes. I think there was only 100 and something in it between the GR Yaris and the Clio 182 Trophy. So yeah, I remember I did vote. I think I voted while I was recording a podcast, so you could all play along with me. You're allowed to pick 3 out of a short list of, I think it was 30 or 40 cars. I do know I did vote for the Yaris. I did vote for the Clio Trophy, and I think my other vote went to the Mark V Golf, which is interesting because obviously then I think I mentioned, but I don't know if I remember. But anyway, the intercooler recently brought Steve Sutcliffe into the fold as one of their riders, and he started off with who's ringing me? Apologies, I got disturbed by a phone call. Arseholes. What was I talking about? Yeah. So yeah, the intercooler brought in Steve Sutcliffe as a rider, and the first thing he wrote about was cars that are overrated, and the first one he went with was the GR Yaris. And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of time for Steve Sutcliffe, and his opinion is certainly his opinion should be taken on board, but these things are subjective. But he's the only person I've ever seen put pen to paper or finger to keys, or whatever way the modern equivalent of writing things down is, to say the GR Yaris is overrated. I know someone who has one, who also has a 360 Challenge Stradale in their garage, and they love their GR Yaris. Anyone else I know who's driven one says it's fucking brilliant. I think he kind of missed the mark really with his criticism. He's saying like, they should have went all out, which they kind of did, because it's pretty much a bespoke car. I'm pretty sure the only things that's carried over are something like the door handles and the fucking roof area or some shit from the regular Yaris. And like taking as sterling into account here, if I'm not mistaken, I think the starting price for a GR Yaris is about 30 grand. So like, yeah, it's a great car, and I think the fact that it won best hot hatch over the last 25 years, from the readership of Pistonheads, who are a pedantic and hardcore bunch of motoring enthusiasts, says a lot more than the writing of one old motoring hack. As much as I respect him, I think he may have been talking out his hole, and the intercooler are kind of printing these stories as a bit of clickbait to get people to try and subscribe to their app. That's actually, so like they put up the top 12, which I haven't actually looked at here, so we'll go through this together. So in 12th position, Peugeot 106 Rally, cool car. 11, the Peugeot 306 Rally. 10, Volkswagen Golf or Mark 7. 9, Ford Focus RS Mark 1. Made of mine, had one of them, beast of a thing. 8, Volkswagen Golf GTI Mark 5. 7, Fiesta ST Mark 7. 6, BMW M140i. So that beat out the Mark 5 Golf GTI and the Fiesta ST. And the Focus RS, that's an interesting one. I haven't driven one. I'm sure they're great, but really? Okay. So it is rear-wheel drive, which is fun. Number 5, Renault Sport Megane 275 Trophy. Again, I haven't driven one, but I'm sure that's absolutely brilliant. 4, Honda Civic Type R FK8. Number 3, Civic Type R EP3. I have driven one of them, and it's brilliant. And then we have the Clio 180 Trophy and the winner, the GR Yaris. So the next vote that they're going for is the best saloon of the past 25 years. So, like the Hot Hatch, let's play this game together. See the selection and vote. Here we go for your top 3 here. So, okay, again, similar enough. There's a large enough short list here. I'll run through it quickly. Alfa Romeo 156 GTA, Alfa Romeo Giulio Quadrifoglio, Alpina B5, Alpina B3, Aston Martin Rapide S, Audi RS4 B5, Audi RS4 B7, Audi RS6 C5, RS6 C7, Bentley Mulsanne Speed, BMW M5 E39, M5 E60, M5 CS F90, M3 E46, E90 M3, G80 M3, Ford Mondeo ST220, Honda Accord Type R, Jaguar XJR, X308, XJR 575, Jaguar XF4, Kia Stinger GTS, Lexus ISF, Lexus GSF, Maserati Quattroporte, C63S, Mercedes AMG, AMG E63S, C63 AMG W204, Lancer Evo 8, 7. Lancer, actually speaking of Evo 7s, I just noticed there's one there on Done Deal, slightly modified. The guy's looking for 40 grand for it. Mental. Lancer Evo 9, Panamera GTS, Taycan Turbo S, Rolls-Royce Phantom, the first BMW one, Impreza Turbo, GC8, so the one from around the year 2000, Super Impreza Blauboy, WRX STI, and the Vauxhall VXR8. Well, first off the bat, M5 E39, thank you. I'm going to vote for the B7 Audi RS4 because my mate has one, and Avant. And they're going for saloon cars here, but we're going to assume the Avant is included in that. And what else here now? E46 M3, go on. Quattroporte. No, let's be realistic here. I'm just going to go with that. Didn't put a lot of thought into that, but there we go. Voted for. Do it yourself. Play along. Piston heads. You'll see it there. Okay. Motorsport. What was there? Oh yeah, the MotoGP was on at the weekend. I'm going to try and follow the entire MotoGP season this year. I fell off the bat with it. I've dipped my toe in for decades now with MotoGP and whatever the fuck they called it before they called it MotoGP. But I'm going to try and watch the full season this year. So I did manage to get the first race in, which was in Portimao in Portugal. And I didn't realise actually that MotoGP have embraced the world of the sprint race a la Formula One. Formula One who are actually a sponsor of MotoGP now as well. It's hard to keep up with things these days. But but I watched the main event. Marc Marquez, he managed to stick his Honda on pole, which was interesting because from pre-season testing, the Honda did appear to be a little bit off the pace. But Marc Marquez, he certainly is some peddler, and he managed to put it on pole. But then, come the race start, he fell back, I think, to 4th, and in an audacious move, I think it was on lap 3 or 4, pretty early on anyway. He tried to outbrake whoever, I can't remember exactly who was in 3rd, and he was way too late in the brakes, and he clipped whoever it was in 3rd, and then he went into 2nd place, into the back of 2nd place rider Miguel Oliveira, and he absolutely took him out. It was nasty. The two of them were out of the race, but Oliveira certainly took the worst of the smack. Marquez knew he was in the wrong straight away, to be fair, but it was a silly move. And Miguel Oliveira is Portuguese, so he knocked out the home hero, who was looking, if not for the win, he certainly was going to be on the podium. So Marc Marquez, he went straight down and apologised to the team, but the crowd were not happy, and justifiably so, because it was a silly mistake. He is being penalised for it. He's going to have 2 long laps, which I'm not 100% sure what that means, because again, I've been a little bit lackadaisical with my following of the MotoGP. I think that might be essentially you do a lap and you do a drive through the pits, to give yourself a long lap essentially. I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me on that one. But so he's going to get 2 long laps, but Marquez isn't going to be at the next race in Argentina, because he has to get surgery on a broken meta something or other in his right hand. I'm not sure if that was because of the crash he had, or it's an ongoing, because he's getting over a plethora of injuries, is Marc Marquez. But he's going to have to serve then his penalty in the following race, which is going to be in COTA, Circuit of the Americas in Austin. But also, unfortunately, the man he hit, Miguel Oliveira, he's also going to miss Argentina due to the injuries he sustained in that accident. Marc Marquez has, he's going to have to kind of fucking reel himself in a bit. His bike is probably not the fastest, and he kind of his ambition outweighed his talent, and it doesnent look good for him. But he's a great racer. So and the racing in MotoGP is brilliant. So the results of the race was Pecco Bagnaia for Ducati. He romped away with it. He's the reigning world champion, if my memory serves me correct. He romped away with it on the Ducati. Not miles ahead, but he was definitely managing for the whole race. He finished ahead of Maverick Vinales on the Aprilia. And then the guy in third, I've actually never heard of before, Marco Bezzici, I think is how you pronounce it. He's racing for the Mooney VR46, which is Valentino Rossi's MotoGP team. The best battle near the end, after unfortunately Marquez taking out himself and Olivier, probably took away a bit of excitement from the front of the pack. But there was a good, burping. There was a good battle between Brad Binder, Jack Miller, and Alex Marquez, who is Marc Marquez's brother. Right at the final corner, Alex Marquez went for a similarly ambitious move to his brother, but he made this one work. He overtook Miller and Binder to go from up from 7th up to 5th on the last lap. It was a great move. They were having a great battle for a good few laps, so it was a good battle. And then Fabio Quartararo, who was the champion in 2021, the young Frenchman, he finished 8th on the Yamaha. So good racing. The next race is in Argentina, which I think is in 2 weeks' time. MotoGP. If you don't watch it, give it a go, because the racing is incredible. Formula 1, we have Melbourne coming up this weekend. Be interesting to see how that all plays out. I say interesting, it'll probably be Max's point to prove after even though he finished second and got the fastest lap, to him that would have been a bad weekend in Jeddah due to his mechanical issue he had in qualifying. So he's going to be out with a point to prove, which means he'll probably be fastest in every single session and walk away with the race in Melbourne. Melbourne does tend to give some good racing, to be fair to it. It's a very different track to the first two we've had. Ferrari tend to go well in Australia, so hopefully they might have a better weekend than they've been having so far. I feel it'll be Max off into the distance. Checo will be second, but a good bit down the road. And I'm just going to put it out there. I think Leclerc is going to get a podium this weekend. That might be wishful thinking, but I'm going to put my money where my mouth is now and say we're going to have Charles Leclerc on the podium, because as I say, Ferrari tend to go well in Australia. So let's see. Apparently they are going to have a fairly quite a significantly revised car come Imola, which I think Imola may be after Australia. I'd have to double check that. So we shall see. And it'd be interesting to see a few other teams and drivers would hope to have a good weekend after a couple of poor races at the opening of the season. McLaren being one of them. yeah, let's see. Let's see how it goes. The predictability of Red Bull running away with things makes me think, like, will I bother getting up? Because it being Australia, it's going to be I think it's on a 5 a.m. I should double check that. I have a thing. It's great. F1calendar.com, I think it is. It converts the race, all the session times, into your local time, and you can actually sync it then to the calendar on your phone. Very handy. Right, why don't I check it while I'm here? But yeah, I was almost like, will I bother getting up, or will I just have a lie in? But I'd be kidding myself if I said I'm not going to get up, because I'm a bit too dyed in the wool of a Formula 1 fan not to get up and watch this stuff. So according to this, it's 6 a.m. Okay, it won't be too bad. Yeah, I probably will. Plus, there doesn't seem to be as many early morning races as there once was. I think it seems, if in my youth, I seem to remember getting up early more often. But yeah, so Australia, Japan, I think then that new Las Vegas race this year, that's going to be an early start for us, because it's going to be. I think the race is going to be on at 9 p.m. local time in Nevada. So what, they're 8 hours behind us. So what would that be? I don't know. It's going to be early in the morning anyway. Yeah, I was almost like, it's almost going to be such a foregone conclusion that I wasn't going to bother. I wasn't going to bother getting up for it, but I'm sure I will. But hopefully it's an entertaining race. There's going to be 4 DRS zones. So there could be a lot of just straight line overtakes. But we shall see. Look, let's stay positive. Okay, so I'll round out as I normally do with my 3 things of the week. My classified find of the week is a 1966. There's that Evo again I was just talking about. A Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 7. 200,000 kilometers on it, 2001. It's got an NCT and stuff, and a bit of tax, and it's modified, 406 horsepower. Like, it's a good nick car, but 40 grand. Are you mad? I don't know. Will someone pay 40 grand for that? Seems like a lot of money. Like, it's not even like a special Evo 7 limited edition run, or whatever you want to put it. But yeah, no. But the car I was looking at, it's a 1966 Mark 1 Cortina 1500, a Super 1500. So nothing, like, it's not a Lotus Cortina or anything like that. But it looks like, again, judging by the photos, it's an absolutely immaculate condition. Now, we don't see the underside of it, but the exterior, the interior, he's showing us inside the boot, inside the bonnet, or under the hood, the engine bay. Everything looks absolutely immaculate. Manual. 12,750 euro, and 48,000 miles in it, which I'm not sure if that's original mileage or it's since a rebuild, but that seems like that seems like good value for what is essentially a 50-year-old vintage car, and a well-loved vintage car, the Ford Cortina Mark 1. Like, I'd sooner spend 12,750 euro on that than, like, I don't know, a fucking 8-year-old Dacia Duster with 170,000 kilometers on it and no NCT. So yeah, that's up on Done Deal if you want to check it out. 1966 Mark 1 Cortina 1500. Again, won't take you long to find it. The YouTube channel I'm going to recommend this week. I know I recommended a movie last week. I watched John Wick last night for the first time, because it's just one of the things that just passed me by. I never got around to doing it. Yeah, it's fun. There's some nice cars in it. He gets his boss Mustang stolen off him. Spoiler alert! At the beginning of near enough to the beginning of the movie, and he has it replaced by a Camaro SS, which he takes a lend off of a friend, and then he gets given a modern day Dodge Challenger. Anyway, it's all American stuff, which again I'm not fully up to date with. Anyway, I'm going off topic. Yeah, the YouTube channel I'm going to recommend is VHS Rallies. It's this guy who just uploads and remasters old rally footage, but proper, like, full length TV footage. For example, like the most recent video he put up is the full 40-minute broadcast of the 1975 Benson Hedges Circuit of Ireland Rally. Yeah, like it's no flim flam. It's just original footage with like original commentary. Yeah, check that out. VHS Rallies on YouTube. Great content that will see you waste years of your life. And then the music I'm recommending for you this week is the newest song by The National. It's called Eucalyptus. It's the second single they brought out ahead of their newest album. If you love The National, you'll love this. If you don't like The National, maybe it'll sway you. If you don't like The National, it probably won't. I like The National. Going to see them in September when they're playing in Dublin. I think they're great. My friend's teenage daughter sent him a link to the announcement of the gig a few months ago, and quite funnily, she goes, "Do you want to go see some old middle-aged man talking to a microphone for 2 hours?" Which, to be fair, is a pretty apt description of The National, but selling them a little bit short. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to leave it there now. Another shitty, rambly podcast about bollocks. If you have listened, I love you. And be safe, be well. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.